Hello, welcome to African STEM Girl. We are going to continue from where we left off last time. So, our focus is creating an income tax calculator. So, what we mean by an income tax calculator is across different governments, not only Kenya, in different countries, there's usually a tax associated to a particular income that you make. So if you are currently in Kenya, you can be able to find the calculator. There's something we call a payee calculator that you can be able to look and see how much tax you are required to pay based on how much money you make. So for example, so in most countries, and specifically just speak about Kenya, there's usually a monthly tax. So I'll just put in some gross salary so that we can just see some of the tax that you need to pay. So I'll just assume the individual does not pay any additional benefit. We'll say that no, I don't. I don't have a mortgage. I don't have a life insurance and a home ownership saving plan. So with that now, I'll come ahead and calculate. So from this figure, we can see that this individual, if they're just paying the basic contribution benefit, so sometimes you can pay additional. If they're just paying the basic and the basic personal relief with 70,000, they will be deducted 13,059 to go towards tax. So if, for example, they're paying 300, they're receiving a 300,000 salary. So this we're just focusing on monthly. Then that will be they will go ahead and pay 82,059 towards tax. So our goal is to create our own tax bracket and tax rate. So this does not follow a particular tax rate. It's just a basic. So this is what we did last time. We were able to style this. We were able to create a table that just gives information to our users. So now the expectation is, what if the user wants to be very specific and to see how much they will need to pay based on a particular income, just like we have done here. So we were just to finalize on the styling and we move on to the JavaScript. So that's where we are going to continue. So last time we stopped at this part, styling this part. This might not be the most best looking, but it's just to show you some of the fundamentals of styling and all that, especially as a beginner. So the next thing is to just center this place or input where the user can be able to type in a particular amount. So I just want it to be centered near the center. I want to change the height and the width. Maybe I can even remove the border and then also edit my calculate my tax button so that the individual can now be able to, not even the individual, but it can just look slightly better. So I'll come here to my index.html. So let's have a look at what we did last time. So what we are able to do is just write the doc type. So remember we said the doc type allows the browser to know that this is a HTML document. We have the HTML, which are tags that give us an opportunity to enclose the HTML code that we are going to write. So a HTML document is normally divided into two, the head and the body. So the head normally contains information like the title, the favicon, which we were able to add here, the tax calculator, and a small icon, and also to connect our CSS with our JavaScript. And to connect that, we used the link tag, and we used it in different ways. As you can see, when you are adding the favicon, we pointed out the file of our favicon as icon.icon. the file of our CSS as style.css, and then we have the type. You have to specify which type of file that is. So for example, for the icon, it's an image. You can specify it's an X icon. And then for the style.css, you can specify that this is a CSS, this is a file that has CSS text. And then rel just shows the relationship. You can show that this is going to be an icon file. And for the style sheet, you'll show that this is going to be a style sheet. So the next thing is the body. So the body, we write code that we want our users to see here. So there is a lot of stuff that we can add in the head, but for now we just focused on those two. But as you can see, the user cannot see the connection between the style.css and the HTML. It's for us as developers to know we have connected those two files. So for the user to be able to see the whole website, it is advisable that you write it inside the body. So the body is just like, like how you can be able to see that I'm wearing a navy blue top. So it's usually the same thing, it's what you want people to see. You put it inside the body. So the first thing is we created a div or a container. So that container, we give it a class name, and we mostly, these class names that you will see here is to enable us to connect the HTML to the CSS. And then we went ahead and added the heading. We went ahead and added the table. So the table just allowed us to be able to display this information that we're saying here. It's not necessarily a must you use a table. Even you can use the table and remove the borders and give them even a better coloring. I think I'll try and see how I can revamp this with CSS. So maybe we can do a different level of CSS where we revamp how our existing projects look like, which is also would be cool. So the next thing is going to be now the form. So the form, this is where we want our users to be able to put in the amount, either annual or monthly, and once they click the calculator tax, we want them to be able to see how much they're going to make. So let us move ahead and continue with this project and see how we are going to make it a success. So the goal right now, like I said, is to center this content. So last time we were able to style the tax form and we gave it a display of flex. We justified the content to the center, and you can see some of the content is in the center, and we were able to say the flex direction to be column so that this content can be on top of each other and not in a row. So one of the things, if we want this, especially this input, to be able to be centered, or everything in this form, because what is in the form is a container that is known as the form input, where you can enter your monthly income, in another form that has the button. So if you want all this to be aligned at the center, it is good. We can also now come here and say, because they're inside the tax form, we can come ahead and say inside the tax form, we can now say align items. So the items that are inside of it, align the items to the center. So if we look at it, we can see now it is aligned to the center, but it's not to the center, especially this this input is not aligned to the center of this text, enter your monthly income. So if you want it to be aligned to the center of this text, we will come and do the same for now the form input. So we'll come inside form input and now also add align items to be center. So this gives us an opportunity to be able to allow us to align any item that is inside another container to the center. So imagine it's like you are having a cookie jar and someone tells you align all the cookies inside the container, yeah, into the center. So that is what we do. So each and every cookie should be aligned to the center, and that's what we have been able to do. So that's all I've added from last time. So let us go ahead and add some height and add some color into this. So if I come here in my index.html here, so in the form input, we can give the input a particular height. So I'll come here to form input. We had given it a width. Let us increase it a little bit. Let's see how that will look like. And then we can now go ahead and give it a particular height. I can do 50px. Oops. That's too much. Let me reduce that to like 25. Yes, that is not so bad. Yeah, so we can have that. Maybe we can put text align center. We see if our placeholder will go to the center. Yeah, so the goal it was to try and make this. There is a placeholder that says don't use commas. I was trying to put it to be slightly at the center, and I've done that by saying text align to be center. I can also give it a background color. I think when I really need to work on my colors. I feel like I have lost something in choosing colors, and I need to redo it again. So whenever you're choosing colors and you really want colors, it's usually advisable you go to what we call color palettes. So when you come here, you normally see colors that they feel like, okay, they go together. So it gives you an opportunity to make your website to fit that color. So there's usually a primary color. So for example, this is the primary color for this. And then they have now added some secondary colors that you can place here and there. You don't have to use all of them. You can choose 3, and you can see it gives you some color codes, so you kind of know what you can use, um, and so forth. So I think if I go to the wait, I think for the following project, for the next project, I'll make sure that I'm really following a good color palette, so that even as next week we start on design, we are keen on the palettes that we are using, so that we can build better projects, better looking projects. We just don't build for the sake of building. So I'll come here. I've picked one of the colors. Wait, which one have I picked? Okay, yeah, this one can work. So I have picked hashtag 3B1C32. Sometimes you don't have to use this. This is actually like, you feel like you need help in finding a color palette, or you're somebody who can, if you're good in colors, you can match up your own colors and you can find one that works for you. So if I refresh now, you see a background color. There is a border. I don't know if you can see it. Let me make sure that that border is no longer there. Border to be none. None. Let me refresh. Okay, let me put some border radius, that is some curved corners. So let's say border radius. And if I put like 20, 20 px is a lot, but let us see how it will look like. Okay, that's not so bad, but I can reduce it slightly. Can I refresh? Okay, 10 px. Okay, yeah, we can have it at that. Let me make the text white so it can be seen. Just come here and write color to be white. It's, yeah. Don't know why it's not picking the white color. Okay. I just want to reduce the width a little bit. I feel like it's too much. Okay. We can add some padding. So padding, remember, is space around the elements. We can say padding. We can say padding X. Okay. So we can say padding left to be 10 px. So I'm trying to put some space around these corners. Oh, I have realized why it's not moving to the end, because of this. Oh, okay. Then I don't think we need the padding. In that case, maybe I can remove the padding left. I felt like it wasn't centered. So I was trying to figure out why it's not centered. Let me just put padding. Okay, so it's slightly bigger, not so bad. Yeah, so when you focus on it, it changes color to white, this border color. We can change that. Come here and say dot form underscore input focus the border. We can also say to be none. I really don't want it. Yeah, so that even, okay, let me say border width. For some reason I don't know why it's not going away. To be 0. Okay, it has maintained its position. I'll figure out how to do that, so we don't really need this for now. Oh wait, we can have it, and then rather than me tampering with the border for now till I figure out why it's not picking up my, we change that to, I change the background color to something lighter when you're typing. So I can pick another color here that's a little bit lighter. Maybe I can pick this one, A6 4D79. A6 4D79. Then I have to be in capital. Okay. So one can go ahead and they can type their numbers accordingly. So we can increase the font size. We can increase it here. So font size to be like 16px. Oh, that's a lot. Okay, we can leave it at that. So we can put some, we can change the color of our enter your annual or monthly income text. So that is under label. So I can come here and I say form input label. So inside the form input, go to the label, change that color first of all. We had some, I don't know if it was this one, the color of this text. Okay, let us increase the size. Font size to be 20px. Okay. So the next thing would be to put some space between the elements. So that is in our HTML, to put some space between the font input and the form button. To do that, we normally use margin. So I'll just come inside even the form. I'll go to the form input. Yeah. And I will put a margin. Sorry. I'll put a margin. So I can specify, because I only want it for the top and the bottom, I don't want it to tamper with the left and the right. I can first start with the top and then I'll move on to the bottom. So I can come here and say margin dash top to confirm something. Okay, margin top. I can say I want it to be like 5px, not too much. I can copy this and change now the value of margin bottom. So with that now, if I refresh, okay, it's not too much space. Let me increase it a little bit, but still too little. We'll do 10px. So if I refresh this, that's how it looks like. So in the for the input, if I just want to add now a space between the input and the label, I can just come to the label and I can also add some margin bottom. I can say 5px, not too much. Yes, like that, so that we now have our spaces. So the next thing I look at is editing the this font. Do not use, it's so big. Let me just reduce it. I also don't like this background color now. Like, don't look good. Let me see if I can use the same color and also reduce the font size for the input to like 14. Okay, let me refresh. Okay, wait, did it change the background color? Oh, let me change it here as well. That was in focus. Let me see now. Okay, that's a little bit better. So we can now change the color of our button. I will really sit down and work on the stylings of these things so that they can look better. They really do look, they don't really look visually appealing to me. So we have our form button. So we can come here and say dot form button. Is it 2 underscores? Let me confirm. Yes, it's 2 underscores. So I can come and say dot form button. That is 1 underscore. Need to add another one. Yes. Dot form button. The first thing I'll put is a margin top, just to add some more space again. I'll say 5px. After that, now I can go ahead and say inside the class form button. Let me just show you how that space will look like. So it's just some, I've just added some space here. So let me now style this calculate my tax. So I'll come here to where I have the word calculate my tax is inside the button. So I'll come back and say dot form button. What do we want to do? We want to add a background color. And we say the background color is, oh my god, this thing of background colors is now stressing me out because I feel like I'm not really choosing colors that I fully like. Oh, oops. AB 8317. AB, so AB 8317. I can use that for now. Let me see how it's looking like. Okay, not so bad. I can increase the size, or I can put, so first of all, I can put some padding. So padding will allow me to have some space around this text, calculate my tax. So I can maybe change that to 20, like 20px. Oh, that's too much. Let me do 15. Okay. Let me try 10. Still feel like this is too much. Yeah, we can stick with 10. Let me increase the font size just a little bit. This is what that will look like. Okay. We can now go ahead and remove the border. You can just write 0. You can say 0px, but if it's 0, it's still 0. I'll put some corners also to that. So to add some corners, some curved corners, I'll just say border radius. And I can give it the same border radius value that I gave the input. So I gave it 10px so that at least they can match in that. Yeah. So I can say if you hover, maybe you change the text to white. So we can come here and we say dot form button hover. We can change the color to white. So if I hover, at least now I can see the color changing to white for my text. So yeah, so I think we are done with the styling. Maybe I'd want to change the color of this shadow. That yellow is disturbing me a little bit. So maybe I can pick this one for 2E 57 54. Let me find that box shadow. It is. So it's 53 2E. What's the other value? 54. Okay, I think we can leave it at that now. So yeah, so we have our income tax and all that. Is this yellow working for me? Let me pick that same color, put it in the background of that button. Okay, so but I just need to change the text to be white. Since now there won't be any difference between when it is hovered and when it's like that, let us leave it like that for now. Or we can pick a lighter purple to show the difference when it is hovered. What is this? 777 6B3. Seven. 6B3. I feel like it's too bright, but let us see how it will look like. Okay, yeah, we can leave it at that. So it's too bright, but anyway, it's okay. So let us now move on to the JavaScript so that we add functionality so that when now somebody clicks, something happens. Right now, when somebody clicks, nothing actually happens. So let us look at the JavaScript. So the first thing we have to do is to connect our HTML to our JavaScript. So the HTML is not aware that we have a JavaScript file, and our JavaScript file is the script.js. So I'll come here, just right above the body, I will write script src is equals to script.js, and then I can close it like that. So what that has done, oh no, I haven't written. You need to write it exactly as it is here, the file name. So as it is here, script.js, if it's in capital, you put it the same way here. So now this will connect my HTML to my JavaScript. So now my HTML is aware that there is JavaScript. So the first thing we have to do is to try and get this form, because the functionality we are just adding on this form. So the goal is to try and capture that from the JavaScript side. So to do that, we will go to our JavaScript, that is our script.js, and we'll create a variable. A variable is a memory location that you can be able to store your values. For example, you can have a memory location that allows you to be able to store the values of the memory location is where you're able to store the values of a variable is a memory location where you're able to store your values. So for example, I can have a variable known as age that stores your age, and anytime your birthday, anytime we celebrate your birthday, we increase the age. So the same thing, we can come here and we can create a memory location that will store that particular value. So we'll come here and we'll say let form. So to create a memory location, you can use the let keyword or the const. So when you say const, you really cannot tamper with the value, but when you write let, you can be able to tamper with the value. So for example, if something that I would give a const would be like my name, I would say, for example, my name is African STEM girl. Yeah, so I can be like, I don't want to change that to African STEM boy, I want that to be a constant. However, if I have like a variable that stores my age, I would want that to be able to change in value so that it shows the new age that I turn each year. So here we can use the let keyword, and you can say let form to be document. So the moment you write document, that means you're referencing the HTML document to document.query selector. Query selector. So when I put query selector, I will now reference that class name. So the class name for my form is .tax form. I mean, it's tax form because it's a class, just like we were doing in CSS. We'll now come ahead and say .tax form. Yeah, so that with that now we have been able to access our form. However, it's not advisable when you're using JavaScript to use class names. Preferably, it is advisable you use ID. So we can come here and actually give this an ID, and we say the same, we can just give it the same ID value, tax form. And then here in the JavaScript, if I want to reference now it as an ID, I just write hashtag tax form. So let us console log and see if this has actually worked. So I will console log form. So if I come here and I refresh, so JavaScript is not what the user sees. The user mostly sees HTML and CSS. So if I come to my console, guess what? I am able to see the form. Okay, so it is showing, and you can see it showing me on script.js line 2. So that means from the console, I have been able to access the HTML form. So what do I do next? From there, I will create a function that checks the value that I put in here. Okay, it checks that value, and then it says if you have put this value, then that means that you are getting this you're going to be taxed. It calculates the tax. So we can come here and we can create a variable that captures that whatever the user writes. So we can say let income to be equals to document. Actually, we can just say, because we already accessed the form, we can say access the element that has an ID of input. So I can come here, first I can come to my HTML, give this input part an ID, can say the ID to be, I can give it form input, like that. So I can say, I can still even come here and say, let income to be document dot get element by II. We can even use query selector just to maintain consistency. Query selector hashtag form input. So I can put dot value. That's done. Dot value. Yes. So I can now console log income. Let us console log income, and we actually see if it will be able to capture that value. So I'll come here and I'll put in a value. Let me just refresh this. So I'll put in anything. I don't know if it will be able to capture. It is not able to capture because I need to add an event listener. The event listener will listen in. Is there, have you clicked the submit button? If you have clicked, let me show you the value. So let us do that. So we can come here and we can say in the form, add an event listener. Sorry, it keeps this autocomplete. I need to disable it. In the form, add an event listener that sees if I submit. I think most of the time we have used, in the previous projects, we have been using the click event, but there is also what we call the submit, and it checks if you are submitting a form. So this is very important in being able to click the submit. You see there is submit here. There is a submit there is a button type submit. So this is very important when you have a whole form and you want, whenever now the user submits the form, to actually now run the code for the project. So you can come here, we can say submit, and if I submit, what do you want? If the user submits, what do you want to happen? So we say track the event. So the event is that action of submitting, of clicking the submit button. So we say, we can say console. Actually, we don't need this event part. I don't want to confuse you. Let me also just rewrite something here so that it is simpler. We can write now function. What do you want to happen once somebody actually clicks that submit button? We want us to console.log for now. We want us to console.log income, the value. So I can remove this console.log here and so that we can only see it whenever once somebody has submitted or has clicked our button. So let me refresh this so that it picks up that different code, and I will write my value. I need to change this to black. So as you can see, it has refreshed so fast. I don't know if you have seen that. It's refreshing so fast that we are not able to see the value. To prevent that refresh, you can come here and add what we call an event. And we say event dot prevent default. So if now I come ahead and go back to my code and I type in my income and I click calculate, I see, first of all, the form does not refresh, it maintains, but something has not worked because I cannot see my value here. Let me see what I have done wrong. Form.add event listener. Okay, let me first change before I figure out what I have done wrong. Where we have our input, let me change that to black. I think I had written white, the text color. Yeah, it is. Let me remove it. But black is the default, so it won't make a difference. Okay. Yeah. So my line 7, let me figure out why my line 7 is behaving as it is. Let me go back to my JavaScript. Okay. So we have a form, document query selector, here query selector dot value. We put the ID from input. Let me look at my code, see what I have done differently. Wait, I think I have tax form, submit. Then let's console log the income. I don't see what, I don't know if, because this is, I don't know if I've written this function wrongly. Let me just check using an arrow function. Okay, so the problem is not the arrow function. out. Yes. Okay, let me console log from input first, the income. You see, I'm just debugging. Debugging is finding where the error is coming from. Okay, so we have that. Perfect. So can we say income dot value? Let me refresh, and so that it captures that change. So I've told it to console log income. Oh, perfect. So that was the problem. For some reason, it's not picking up when I put the dot value here, but it's picking up when I do the dot value here. So when I do that, we are able to see the value that I have typed, which is okay. So up to that point, I am going to create now a function that allows me to be able to calculate the tax. Okay, so I'll come here. I will just move this to the top and create that function before we put the submit button, because we don't want the submit button code to run first before the function that we want. So what is a function? A function is a piece of code that runs specifically as that runs and gives us specific results. So for example, I can write a piece of code that reminds me it's lunchtime, maybe every time it's 1 o'clock daytime. So that I expect that alarm to ring at 1, not at 1:05 or at 12:55, exactly at 1, because I have given it specific instructions to give me specific results. So that is what we call a function. So here we created a function and we passed a value. We call this a parameter. A parameter is a parameter or yeah, mostly it's usually parameter. So we call this a parameter and we give it the word event. So this parameter is like a value that you're passing inside the function. So for example, I can have a function that maybe that's alarm function, but now it's like hi African STEM girl, it's time for lunch. We want it to pass the name, my name, inside that function. So that becomes a parameter so that anytime my function runs, it is specific. So here we passed the event function and we say event prevent default. And we saw that allowed us that anytime we click, the form does not refresh itself. If I remove this event prevent default, if I just put it as a comment and I refresh my work and I click, anytime I click my button here and I click calculate tax, it refreshes the form to the point where it affects how my value is captured. It's too fast, it refreshes the whole value and I lose that value. So unless if you don't really want to add the prevent default, you have to store the value maybe in a local storage. There is a session we did, it was for the login, the first video we did. We made use of local storage and we looked at the different storages that are there in a computer. If you come here at application, you will find that there are different storages that you can have, not in a computer, but in a browser, because mostly storage is normally handled by the database. But if you're yet to create a database, there are several storage that you can use on the browser, like the local storage, the session storage, and the cookies. I believe some of you have seen your websites asking you, accept cookies, deny cookies, and all that. So that is just a form of storage. So that is, and there are so many. There is cache, there is shared, private state, interest group. Some of them, I think I also need to look into what they mean. Yeah, so that I can also be able to communicate that with you. I'll definitely go and look for a breakdown of what all this does and share with you so that we all know what we are dealing with when we are in the browser. So we have our console. So that is where we add this prevent default. So now if with the prevent default, if I refresh, so I'm just refreshing so that my browser takes note of the new code that I've just written. So if I now click on this, so I can see, no, it's, first of all, it's not refreshing, and I can be able even to see the value. So remember, the value, we stored it in script.js line 9, and that is where it is, you see, line 9. So let us create a function that now calculates the tax. So let us create a function that calculates the tax. So I'll come here and I write function. I'll say, I can call it calculate income tax. It's long, but you can have it. So this time, this function will take in the value of income. Okay, so this income value. So we can pick it income, so as a variable or a parameter, because that's what we are calculating, right? So we can say the first value of the tax to be 0, tax to be 0. And then after that, now we will be updating this value accordingly. So I can come here and I say income is equals to income dot value. The reason why I'm saying that, remember, for some reason we were not able to put the dot value here. It was not picking. So to be able to see this value like we are seeing here, we had to put the dot value after the income. After we have captured the income, we have created our variable, so we can come ahead and capture it. So the reason why I'm not using the word let is because you only need to create a memory location once. If I create a memory location called name, like let name to be African STEM girl, I don't need to say all the time, let name. No. I only need to do it once, because that is when I am creating. But in other times, I just edit the value. So here I have edited the value to be, the income should now be income dot value, so that I can capture that value. And then now I can proceed and say if. So we are going to use what we call conditional statements. So conditional statements allow us to be able to run a specific code as long as a particular condition is met. For example, if I go back to my alarm, maybe I can say, if I press the snooze button at 5 minutes, the alarm should ring again after 5 minutes. If I press snooze button to be 10 minutes, the alarm should ring again after 10 minutes. So that is how we go about it. So I'll come here and I will say if income, so we are just going to use the same values that we have here. So we are going to say if income is less than or equals to 29,999. So I'll come here and I say if income is less than or equals to 29,999. Oh, we should remove, it's good to remove commas. Yeah, the computer will not understand them. So we say if the income is equals to 29,999, how much tax? We said 0. So I'll come here and I'll say tax to be equals to 0. I can now proceed. So in the next one, we say else if income. So this one is now going to be for if your income is between 30,000 and 59,999. So we can be like if income is greater or equal to 30,000. Sorry, I keep adding this. Okay. If income is greater than or equal to 30,000 and income, so we in programming in JavaScript, when you're using the word and, we use it using this, we call them ampersand. It's the and sign, so we put 2 of them. So we write and income is less than or equal to, so we want it to either be less than or equal to 59,999. So I'll come here at 59, like that. What do I want it to do? I want it to calculate my tax. So it will be tax will be is equals to income times, so in programming when you want to put the times, you put that thing which looks like a star, click shift number 8, it will add it, and then you say 0.05, which is the same as 5%. Okay, so we will continue like this for all of them. So I can just copy this and now just change the values in between. So the next one is if the income is between 60,000 and 8999. So I can come here if it is greater than or equals to 60,000 and less than 89,999, the tax is 10%. So this will be 0.10 or 0.10. It's still the same. Copy this. So we have now the next one. The next one is between 90,000 and 119. So this it should be greater than or equal to 90,000 and between 119. Yeah. So this one they should be charged 15%. So here just remove that and put that. Let us continue. The next one is this one is 20%, 120K. So between 120 and 149. Yeah, and we have this being 20%. Okay, so the last one now is from any income above 150. So you can come here and say else. So else if the else the tax is equals to income times 0.30. So this will now be if you're above 150 onwards, it will charge you that. So the next thing you have to do is you have to add what we call a return statement. This will allow you to get the value, that tax value from this function. So this function main role is to calculate and to return the value of the tax. After that, we want to use the tax. So you'll come here. Another thing I need to specify here, this income, the moment you, even if here we have put it in number form, the moment we click calculate tax, in the JavaScript side, it is received as a string. So you have to change it back to number. So to do that, you come here and type number into brackets so that it changes it into a number. Okay. But also, no, here, let it pick it as a string. We'll come here in our function, this function, and we will say income, so that it changes it into a number whenever we click, or we can do it the other way. There is still no other problem. We can say number is equals to income dot value, so that anytime we click that value, that income is changed into a number. And then the next thing, we are like tax. We're just going to create a variable here called tax. The reason why we are creating another variable called tax is because this tax, not unless we put, we can just, if it's inside a function, it can't be used anywhere else. But if you want to use that variable or that memory location outside that function, in other function or in other things, you have to write it independently. So I'll come here now and say tax, rather than, so that it's not confusing, I'll say tax is now equals to calculator, now that function, calculate income tax. So this is the name of our function here. Calculate income tax and pass in the income. So remember, our income tax was picking in the variable income. So, and here I am saying, so anytime you want to use that function, you have to pass in the variable it should use, because it needs something. If I do it without that, if I just write income tax into brackets, it won't work. We have to do that. And then now the other thing, I think I would prefer to create we can do it outside. Which div is this? Oh, okay, we can create a div to show the output. Can write a paragraph, show the output there, and then I can come here and I give this an ID and I say tax result. So because it's an ID, I'll fetch it from the JavaScript side and I will say income, let tax result. So create a memory location known as tax result. Store in it inside, go and pick document, query selector, into brackets that has an ID of tax result. So the document is go to the HTML and get the element that has an ID of tax result. So remember, if it's an ID, you start with the hashtag, put this in quotation marks. So which element has that ID? I think I can put, rather than putting the ID in the div, let me put it inside the paragraph so that it just puts the answer inside the paragraph directly without having to now move from the div to inside the paragraph. So now I can come here and I say, where do I want now the value to be replaced? I can to be displayed. I can say tax results dot inner HTML. This is what I want to be shown inside of it. So I can write. For now, I think we can go ahead and write. So I'm using backticks, not quotation marks. Backticks is normally found before number 1 in your keyboard. And I'll show you why we have to use backticks. Income tax. No. You will pay a tax of, you will pay a tax of several shillings. So the first, we use string interpolation. So interpolation allows us to pick the value we have already created. So here I am picking the value tax. So that is what I will do. Tax, like that. Let me put the Kenya shillings logo. Did we use KES or Kenya shillings? Let me just double check. Can even check from here. Or Kenya shillings. So we can use that to be consistent. So it can be like, you will pay a tax of this amount. So let us see if this is going to work. I'll refresh so that it picks up those new code, and I will write my value and I click. So it's saying I'll pay a tax of not a number. Why? Let me refresh. I think I have an idea why. Because this is not a number. This is in string form. If I come here and I console.log tax so that we see if this function is working. Let me refresh. So if I go to my console, I see line 33, we have 23.22. Line 27 is showing not a number. So here there is a problem. I have an idea why. Let me just return the, okay, let me just maintain the console tax. We'll have to come here and also say that this is a number. But actually we don't need to anymore, because the reason why I've removed that part is because we have already said here income is equals to number income value. Okay, so yeah, now it should work. I don't need to put it again inside the function. That should now pick it up. Let me refresh. Let me put in our number. Yeah, so you see now it has calculated. So it's showing me that the value on line 25 is 69. 697,306. So because I wrote console, this value is not passed, this tax value is not passed into this function. So to make it pass, that's why we stop using console and we use return. So if I come in and now refresh, I think I don't need that anymore because I have not consoled. Now I have returned. So we see now the value showing here. So let us style this so that it is visible. We can come back to our index.html, tax result, and say, let's go to our CSS and say dot tax result. Let us look at change the color to that. Okay. We can also change the font size. Maybe we can make it like 20px. You want to see how much you're going to pay clearly. So if I refresh and I put in the values, so we can still see, but it is not showing. Did I do a mistake here in said tax result? Oh, it's an ID. It's not a class. And here I have put, sorry, here in my style, I have used dot. So I'll come here and I can just, remember I said in CSS, it's good to use class names. In JavaScript. It's good you use IDs. So here, write tax result. So if I come here and I refresh now, I put in a value and I try not to put in too big. Yeah, so now we can see this is how much you will pay in tax if you earn 234,353. Yeah, so there is a calculator project. I think we can do that next. And I'll show you how you can be separating these values with commas. Even here, how can you separate with commas anytime you get to the third value? But we can do that in the next session. So guys, remember our YouTube videos normally run from 11 to 1. So I hope that is something you take note of, and we do that every day. So, but right now we have finished this project mainly because we started it on Saturday. or in the last class. So if this is your first class, you missed the last class, go and check the previous video and code along. This is not a session where you should just be watching. This is a session where you should be coding along. So even if it's not now, especially afterwards, take your time and go and code along so that you can have your own tax calculator. So like I have said, after we have next week, we are going to be doing designing, and we will see how to choose color palettes and make better designs. And later on, we'll come back and revisit some of these projects and add better designs. Right now, our focus was for you to understand the basics of CSS. So yeah, so we'll meet tomorrow. Have a nice remainder of the day. Bye-bye.